Hello and welcome back. Now we want to create another method. Okay, now this method will listen for messages from the order service, and the messages will be used to create, approve, or delete orders. Okay, so the messages will come from the order service. We don't have the order service yet, so we're going to create it later, but we want to set up the consumer right now. Okay, so I will just copy and paste this function, or duplicate this function. Okay, and then I'll call this consume seller direct messages. Okay, consume seller direct messages. Then let me export it. Okay, now for this, like I said, this function will listen for messages from the order service. Okay, and then from here we are going to use it to create or approve, update properties inside the user's document, okay, or the seller's document. Okay, so now let's start. We pass in the channel, we check the exchange name. Now the exchange name here is going to be jobber seller. Okay, so jobber seller update, and then the routing key we are going to use is user seller, and then the queue name is user seller queue. Okay, now this is going to be a direct exchange as well. Remember I said we've not published any messages with this particular exchange name, okay, because we've not created our order service. Okay, now the same thing, we assert the exchange, we assert the queue, that is, it creates the queue, it connects the exchange with the queue, and then this is where we consume the message. Now we're going to do it differently. Okay, so here I'm going to send a type. Okay, and then I'm going to send seller ID, ongoing jobs, okay, completed jobs. Remember we already have the functions. Then total earnings, okay, and then we have some other properties like recent delivery, then gig seller ID, and we have a count property. Okay, so these are the properties that we are going to send. Okay, we get it from JSON parse, and then message content to string. Okay, then let us start using the type. So the type will have different values. So the first one is if type is equal to create dash order. Okay, so this if the message comes from the order service where the user is creating an order. Okay, because when a seller creates an order, that is, pays for a particular gig, and then there's a button that will be used to start the order. So once they click that button, it's going to create the order in the order service and send it to the order database. And then we want to publish a message from the order service, and it's going to have this type called create order. Okay, so once we have this type create order, what we need to do is to just update the ongoing jobs. Let me go to services, seller. So we want to update or call this function. Yes, we want to call this particular function update seller ongoing jobs props, because we need to update this property right here. Okay, so if type is equal to create order, then await update seller ongoing jobs, and then it's going to take the seller ID and then ongoing jobs. Okay, so if type is equal to create, we want to be able to update this property. Okay, that means if the user has started working on a particular order, then we want to update this property to 1, increment it by 1. Okay, and then another case will be, I'll use else if, okay, if type is equal to approve order. Okay, then I want to update the completed job fields. Okay, I want to update the completed job fields. So it's going to be await updates seller completed jobs props or prop. Okay, and then here let's see this method update seller completed jobs. Now we are passing an object of type I order message. Okay, so here let's pass in the object. Okay, so we're going to pass seller ID, we're going to pass ongoing jobs, we're going to pass completed jobs. Okay, we're going to pass total earnings, and then recent delivery. Okay, if you go back to the service, you can see that's what we need right here. Okay, and then we have another case. Let's say I'll use else if type is equal to updates gig count. Let's see our schema. So we want to update total gigs. So if a seller creates a gig for the first time, we want to update this total gigs property. Okay, so we increment it by 1, and then this is going to be await update total gigs count. Here we pass in the gigs or gig seller ID, and then we pass in the count. Okay, and then lastly here else I will use else if type is equal to cancel dash order, then I'll say await. Now I'm going to reuse this method. I will reuse this method right here. Okay, so I will just copy this. Now instead of ongoing jobs, I'll add -1. Okay, so if a seller cancels an order, now we want to decrement this by 1. Okay, so we want to reduce the number of ongoing gigs. Okay, so we reduce that value. Okay, and I need to remove this. Okay, and then down here we call channel dot acknowledge. So msg. Okay, I think I did not add an acknowledgement here. Let me see. Yes, I did not add an acknowledgement in the previous function. So right here you can add the channel.ack so that it acknowledges the message. Okay, so this is what we want right here. You know what, we are going to make a change. I don't want to use this method. Okay, so I'll create another method. I'll go to my service. I need to create a method to specifically update this cancelled jobs property. Okay, so go to service, and then here I will duplicate this function. I'll call it update cancelled jobs props. Okay, so it takes the seller ID. I don't think we need this. Okay, so now what we need to do is for cancelled jobs, we'll need to update or increment the cancelled jobs property by 1 and decrement the ongoing jobs by 1. Okay, so ongoing jobs we are going to increment by -1, and then cancelled jobs we're going to increment by 1. I didn't think about it earlier. That was why we did not create the function before. Okay, and then let me just export it. Okay, so what I've done is if an order was cancelled by a seller, then we need to increment the ongoing jobs by -1. That means we reduce it, but the cancelled job we will increase it by 1. Okay, so and I need to use this method, so I will use the method right here. I don't need this, and then I can import this here. Okay, so now we have the consume seller direct message. We can go ahead and use it in our service TS file. So here I'll just paste here and then import. Okay, so now we have the consume buyer direct message, consume seller direct message. In the next video we are going to create another consume message. This time it's going to be a message that will come from the review service.